you don't have to be an expert, right? If your Achilles heel is finance, I met a guy a while ago and it's like, before I hire a financial professional, I'm going to do all this stuff so that I could learn all of this. I said, that's great, but there's an opportunity cost there. How long is that going to take you, right? 6 months? Is it going to be 6 months before you think you know enough to make a good hire in finance? 6 months might be too late, right? Mm-hmm. Just so, again, that entrepreneurial arrogance means that I can master anything, right? I believe that myself. I can master anything. The question is it a good use of my time?
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke, and today we have Henry Daas. He's a serial entrepreneur, business coach, and screenwriter, also the founder of Daas Knowledge. He's also the author of the new financial book called Financial Intelligence, what you really need to know about how to manage, invest, and grow your money now. Henry, thanks so much for joining us on the show, and how you doing, my friend?
Great. Thanks for having me, Dwaine.
Yeah, really looking forward to it, because we was talking about before is that you have a client or you have a customer, and everybody is in the business of getting either of those. So like I said, it's very relevant to have you and talk about all of your knowledge and your background on this subject. So really looking forward to it. But before we kick things off, would you mind talking about how you guys started and a little bit more about your company?
Sure. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started my first business almost 30 years ago, 1991. I had a series of different businesses. I was in the tech space. I actually started by selling Apple computers to Fortune 500 companies. Had a leasing company. I had a website over 20 years ago that sold networking products, firewalls and routers and stuff like that. I had a real estate business, very, very pertinent to your audience. We bought $1 million homes, knocked them down, and built multi-million-dollar homes. I had a home theater business where we did, 100,000 plus home theaters for people's, technology needs at home, automation. But for about the last 8-9 years, I've been a business coach. So that's where I ended up.
Yeah, so you kind of got your hands in all of those different businesses, which give you all that experience to kind of help others and share that knowledge. So is there I know that you mentioned pre-call that you work with tons of business, but is there kind of like more of your portfolio of business owners that you're working with that, you can express and talk about?
Well, I work with a lot of folks who run remote teams. So businesses where the upper management might be in the US, but they've got a team in the Philippines. They've got a team in, let's say, Eastern Europe. They might have a team in Bogota, Colombia. They're essentially running 24 hours a day. So people are working while others sleep and then passing the baton. They run their business through Slack and through other SaaS platforms that are out there. There are unique challenges to running those businesses. I think people are seeing it now in the pandemic where, the office space is kind of off limits. So everyone's had to adapt to doing business via Zoom. But for me, that's kind of old hat. I've coached people on every continent except Antarctica. Apparently, Antarctica does not have a lot of entrepreneurs. Lots of penguins, not a lot of entrepreneurs. So I'm very comfortable working in that arena.
And as far as kind of all of the businesses that you coach and, all of the, the years of work with different types of businesses, are you seeing like a kind of a common theme that most people are kind of tripping up that's not allowing them to succeed? What's kind of like that number one or number two thing that you're always constantly helping businesses get through?
Well, the first step is hiring a coach. I know that's a shameless plug for me. So that's really being able to get out of their own way. right? You have to have a certain amount of, I call it entrepreneurial arrogance, right? You really just have to believe you got this, you know everything. I don't need anybody, I don't need any help. And then you start leveling up and you realize, wow, there is so much that I don't know. I'm writing a book now. It has the unlikely title of Codfish, and it basically stands for the 7 silos, as I call them, of any business: customer support, operations, development, finance, infrastructure, sales and marketing, and human resources. Every business has these 7 silos. They don't have 6, they don't have 8, they have 7. And most entrepreneurs will, if we sit down and analyze it, they'll be really, really good at 1 or 2 of those. They'll be mediocre at a bunch of them, and there'll be 1 or 2 that are their Achilles heel. So it's important for them to understand that and get the necessary help and resources to lift up the parts of their business that are just not functioning at a high level.
And as far as kind of speaking to that, for people that are kind of like looking to scale their business, you had mentioned take it to the next level, and you mentioned kind of the 7 silos. For people that are kind of strategically trying to move up, is there something they should invest in first to say, I mean, obviously outside of a coach to kind of navigate the waters and really let them know where to go, but is there maybe going to get, like a team or systems or focus on marketing? What kind of thing to be the first thing to start?
Convene a board of advisors, right? Got to be a little bit careful because you may get a few too many voices in that, but there are worse decisions than getting a group of trusted people together and meeting once a month, once a quarter, right? Mm-hmm. Even now, where everybody's comfortable with Zoom, you don't even have to leave. When I convened my first board of advisors over 25 years ago for my first company, we met in person in New York City, trying to get everybody's schedule arranged. It was a Herculean task. Now it's pretty easy. Mm-hmm. Right now, you say you can't make a Zoom call. What could you possibly be doing? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's because I have another Zoom call. Right. It's not because you're actually going anywhere or doing anything. So that's certainly you can read lots of books, right? Mine's a work in progress, but there's tons of them out there. And there's a lot of really good things and best practices that you can learn. So yeah, there's a lot more that you can do before hiring that coach. But I will caution people, you don't have to be an expert, right? If your Achilles heel is finance, I met a guy a while ago, and it's like, before I hire a financial professional, I'm going to do all this stuff so that I could learn all of this. I said, that's great, but there's an opportunity cost there. How long is that going to take you, right? 6 months? Is it going to be 6 months before you think you know enough to make a good hire in finance? 6 months might be too late, right? Mm-hmm. Just so, again, that entrepreneurial arrogance means that I can master anything, right? I believe that myself. I can master anything. The question is it a good use of my time?
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's very, because the most important thing in the world is time, because, that's the only thing you can't get back.
You said it.
You talk a lot about that, and I actually, reading through some of your information, talk a lot about SMART goals and things like that, rich and time and all that things. Can you kind of take us through the process? I know, engaging a person like yourself, but kind of the process of, entrepreneur, who is qualified to like work with a person like you, or was it like a, good client for you? And a good
Well, I like to work with $1 million plus businesses, which usually means that they're in business for a little while, couple years. I mean, the numbers are a little jaw-dropping. There are about 30 million businesses in this country, and 96% of them will never do more than $1 million in a year. Most businesses are small businesses, and the vast majority of businesses is being done by Fortune 500 companies, right? So if you do the math on it, so what does it mean? Tons of your businesses are just your mom and pop players, right? Maybe it's somebody in the real estate business who owns a bunch of buildings. I know a guy out in Wyoming, and he owns about a dozen buildings, but he's in his mid 30s and he's doing very well, but he's a small entrepreneur. He may never reach the $1 million top line number, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have the cash flow to afford to have a coach to help him get wherever it is that he wants to go.
And you also mentioned on the pre-call that you also have mastermind groups as well. I'm part of a couple, and I just see like a tremendous amount of benefit in those of involving like-minded individuals and having a
Right.
moderator to kind of facilitate, making sure everything's on task so that everyone's kind of focused on the goal. Do you talk about your group and kind of the success that it brings to entrepreneurs?
Right. So the entrepreneurial masterminds, I call them curated masterminds. So and I'm in probably 4 or 5 different masterminds, and they have a tendency to fall apart. Right. And there's really 2 reasons for that. And this is what I'm trying to address by creating these curated masterminds. Number 1, no money. These are free masterminds. No money changes hands. Right. It's too easy to join and it's too easy to drop out. I see it all the time, trying to hold it together. People have no skin in the game. The money is there for a reason. It gives you an incentive. You can't just walk away, because most people will say to themselves, even if it's only $50, they'll say, I don't want to throw away $50, right? I'm going to show up. So there's that subtle little bit. And the other part of mastermind groups is they're really centered around accountability, being able to create goals and then be held accountable for them. But there's nobody to hold the accountability group accountable. So in the groups that I'm in, I'm the moderator, I'm the curator. I don't participate in the accountability goals, right? I don't have any goals other than running this group. That frees me up to call people out when they're not performing. Let's face it, sometimes you have to. But if you're a participant in the group, I've discovered that most people are a little reticent about calling out somebody else in the group. But I think you have to. You have to have somebody in that group who can call you out. I'm an old school, I'm 61 years old. I'm an old school taskmaster. I was raised in the 60s. It's a different world. Coach told you to run through a brick wall. You ran through a brick wall. Now, coach tells you to run through a brick wall. They'll say, well, if I do that, I'm going to hurt myself and then I'm going to sue you. Right? I'll have to call my lawyer first. I'm exaggerating, but you get the idea.
Well, not too far from the truth sometimes.
Yeah, it's not too far from the truth, right? So for me, it's very simple. Even in the free groups that I run, if you miss two meetings in a row, you're done. You're out. It's just as simple as that, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Just as simple as that. It's if you can't make the commitment, once is a mistake, twice is a problem, as my dad used to say. And that's it. Those are the rules. No, you can't come back to me and tell me I didn't know what the rules were. I told you what the rules were. Right? I'm looking for people who are committed to leveling up. You can't just come in like a tourist and figure I'm going to pop in for a meeting here or there when it's convenient for me and expect to get anything out of it. And you're doing a disservice to the other people in the group who are showing up. Right? There's another old phrase, 90% of like being a parent, 90% is just showing up. Right? And it really is true. And you have to build that muscle. Because that's the essence of entrepreneurship. You don't have to be passionate about it. And I've written about that over and over again. It's like, you don't have to be passionate about what you do, but you have to be committed to it. Because there are times when it's going to suck. I had a coaching call this morning with a client of mine who's probably close to a $10 million business. And right now, things are kind of sucking a little bit for him. And we have to talk about that, right? It's going to pass, but while you're in it, it sort of sucks, and you can't wait till it's over, but you gotta work your way through it.
Yeah, it's very important now. As of now, you mentioned, it's kind of sucking for a lot of people, and it's really it is really testing people that maybe business was okay and they were kind of getting along with just casually doing things and just doing things on a regular level, but kind of realize how vulnerable they've been since this pandemic kind of tested a lot of people. So this really puts people to really the test of, can you really make it? And that kind of goes to your saying with the mastermind groups, people's holding you accountable, because you really have no choice now because you're really put to the test.
Yeah. Warren Buffett said, when the tide goes out is when you learn who's swimming naked. Right. So there are a lot of folks who are entrepreneurs. I opened my coaching practice for April, May, and June for 3 solid months. And I opened it up to anybody and everybody. And I put it out on some of my networks, and I put it out on LinkedIn, and I had, I think, 87 calls over those 90 days with over 50 different people. Some I had, more than one phone call with them. People got the rug pulled out folks in hospitality related businesses, they went from one day having a viable business and through no fault of their own, it went to zero overnight. Very hard to prepare for that sort of a black swan event. And most businesses, just the tax code alone de-incents you as a business owner from keeping money in your business. 95% of businesses are pass-through entities, which means if I leave money in my S Corp at the end of the year and I don't take it out, right, I'm going to pay corporate tax on it. And then when I go and take it out again, I'm going to pay personal taxes on it. Exactly. It's the same money, right? That's not a smart money move. I talk about my book, FQ Financial Intelligence, right? Paying taxes twice on the same money, not a smart money move. So they don't have weeks. That's why the PPP was so important, is because it allowed people to continue to employ folks. And as long as they used that money for that, the government was subsidizing them, right? And that was huge. Now it's expired, and yet we're still in the middle of this pandemic. They need a part two of that.
Exactly.
Or we're going to start to see a lot of businesses failing.
Absolutely. Yeah, you just mentioned the book. Can you kind of tell us more about it? Is it thing I had mentioned before about the 7 pillars? Can you kind of get into a little
Well, that's actually a different book. That's the book I'm writing now. So Codfish is the book I'm writing about business. FQ Financial Intelligence is the book that I wrote that I actually created as a course. So I was at a conference in Thailand, of all places. I was in Bangkok, and I was at a mastermind table with a group of coaches. And we were talking about kind of our Jim Collins BHAGs, our big, hairy, audacious goals. And mine was to write a course to teach people everything that I know from my 40 years of managing and growing my own money. And they all looked at me and said, you're not getting any younger. Might want to get on that. So I did. I wrote it as a course. And then after I kind of did it all backwards, I wrote it all as a course. And then people said, you should make this a book. And that took me like a year to turn the course into a book. Just because there's a lot of things that go into producing a professional book. And I didn't want to take any shortcuts being a first timer with that and self-publishing. So I sell it as a course. It's a 20-week course. I do it one-on-one. But I give the book away for free. To go to my website, if you nosy around my Daas Knowledge website, you can find a link in there to download the book for free. So why not?
Absolutely. Look forward to it. So is that book available now? The HQ build? Okay.
Yeah, FQ is available right now.
Okay.
I launched it last fall. And if you go in there, you'll find a link and it'll take you to Book Baby and you get 100% off. It's pretty good. What I learned is the only person who makes money on books is Jeff Bezos. So who knew?
Yeah.
I just want people to read it. There's a lot of valuable stuff in there because I cover everything from pretty much the day you're born till the day you die. 18 chapters. It's a bit of a beast of a book. It's 432 pages.
Wow.
But each of the chapters is very self-contained. I try to cover one subject in each of the 18 chapters. And it's the same way that I teach the course. Start at the beginning and we work our way to the end.
Like it. Yeah, we'll make sure to have that in the show notes, the link to that. Just kind of learn a little bit more about you, kind of read your bio and everything. Great story. Like I said, long tenure in all of these different businesses. But what's a typical work day for you? And do you have any special morning routines?
I do. I'm a trader. I've been trading stocks and bonds, and I don't do commodities or things like that, like oil. I've traded gold with ETFs. But I've been doing that. I made my first stock purchase in 1976, I think, Chrysler, when they were about to go bankrupt. So I was in high school. So I've been trading and investing my entire adult life. So I start every morning with a little 5-question survey that the results of which is like a traffic light. It'll say, green, you're good to trade. Amber, trade with caution. Or red, no trade, right? So green doesn't mean I have to trade. It just means I'm free to. Amber means be careful. And red, if it's a no trade day, I don't trade anything, even if a trade lands right in my lap. I'll do other stuff. So I do that, and then I have a whole other set of homework that I do where I look at the futures and gold and the price of oil and foreign exchange. I look at the euro. I look at the yen. I look at something called the Baltic Dry Index, which is an index of shipping costs. A whole bunch of charts. When I first started doing this, I don't even know how many years ago, it might take me half an hour to do all this. Now it takes me about 5 or 6 minutes. That sets me up for how I think the trading day is going to go. And then I have my portfolio up. In fact, if you look, you can see it. You might be able to make out that that's a chart of Tesla there. And that's a chart of a couple different portfolios that I run because I run my own and I run money for some other people. And then I've got that on in the background from the moment the market opens until after the closing sessions.
Nice. And are you using any like sites or subscriptions to kind of get more in-depth knowledge about businesses and stuff like that? It's all compiled. You mentioned that it used to take you a while to get that information, but it takes you, or just because overall you know where to look?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have it set up. I talk about it actually in my book. I kind of go through the whole process and where I go for my resources. So
Nice.
when I'm looking for, I want to know what reports are going to be issued on a particular day. So I go to briefing.com and I click a link and it'll tell me. But after a while, you learn, that Thursday, the unemployment numbers, Thursday at 8:30, you can set your watch by it unless it's a holiday like Thanksgiving. That's when the unemployment numbers come out. Right? So it's an hour before the opening. So some things are very, very predictable. The chart's a little different. I look at new highs, new lows. I look at the bullishness. I do pay for a report from Investors Intelligence, which comes out every Wednesday for $25 a month. I get a weekly report about investor sentiment. And then there's another one that's called Sentiment Trader that I use. And I feel free recommending them. They're both pay services. But they're worth their weight in gold. They have an enormous amount of information. So as we're speaking today, the market is down, and the market was down last week. Tech is selling off, right? And I've had a bunch of people text me, and I texted them back. I said, "Yeah, I write every 2 weeks. I send out a newsletter. I call it the Daas FQ update, and for the last 6 weeks, I've been telling people that sentiment is approaching a danger level. So if you have profits to take them, right? Nobody ever went, there was a famous Bernard Baruch quote that I used in my book. Nobody ever went broke taking a profit, right? And people will come back and say, well, I don't want to miss the big up move. It's like, if your data and your metrics tell you that it's a good time to take a little money off the table, to de-risk, follow it. Don't second guess yourself. Put your money in your pocket. Yeah, maybe it runs away from you. Maybe you read it wrong, right? But risk is everything. You have to de-risk yourself. So when markets get a little crazy, like they have been, the easiest way to de-risk yourself is to go to cash.
Exactly.
Right? It's easy.
Yeah, I like that. With all your successes and kind of all your experiences, what you can say that you're most grateful for?
I always say any day I ain't covered with dirt is a good day. What am I grateful for? I'm grateful that I'm living at this time in the greatest country on earth. I know I'm not wearing my American flag shirt. But yes, I believe that America is a great experiment. I know we're going through some tough times with the coronavirus, but I'm always bullish on America. I'm bullish on American business, so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I got a wife who loves me. I got 3 boys who are healthy, even though one of them came down with coronavirus a couple weeks ago. So he had to go to his apartment. We have an apartment in New York City, and so he had to go sequester himself in New York City to stay away from the family. And while he was convalescing, and he's better now. Good. And he's not shedding the virus. So that was our first direct experience with the virus itself. I'm grateful for having a couple of bucks put away, but that was my planning. That wasn't an accident. Yeah, a lot of things.
Good to hear. And then how do we get in touch with you? I know we have your website, and is it Haas Knowledge and the other Haas?
Daas Knowledge. So what I've been offering lately is a little podcast freebie. So if you go to podcast.dasknowledge, DAAS knowledge.com, it'll take you to a landing page. So I'm offering a month of free coaching to podcast listeners. So it could be entrepreneurial coaching, it could be financial coaching, or it could be a mix of both.
Oh, very nice.
So I'm doing that as a freebie. It's kind of like a little tracking mechanism. It's like when it's like you hear an ad for 800 flowers and they say use this special promo code Dwaine, right? So that way when somebody comes on and puts it in and they get an extra bonus, you know where it came from. Right? It's like pixeling it. So I decided I've been doing a lot of these podcasts. I've done probably over 30 since the COVID hit, because I got a little extra time on my hands because I don't really go anywhere anymore. So I said, let's do this as a little experiment. Give away a month's worth of coaching and just be able to talk to people. It's like, why not?
Yeah, I like that. I'm very appreciative of you putting that out. And I know a lot of people is going to definitely take up your offer on that, because especially now everyone's trying to strategize and kind of get ahead of the game. And, you can offer that insight to help us out. So really appreciate that.
No, it's my pleasure.
Well, Henry, is appreciative to talk to you again, learn more about your businesses and your whole process and everything. And again, congratulations on the books and the ones that's coming out, and look forward to getting those and the other ones coming out in the future.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, Dwaine.
All right. Take care. Have a great week.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or the listening platform of your choice. Also, please check us out at DwaineLClarke.com, as well as find us on Facebook for more useful content and resources.